Hello there, everyone. Mediocre Otaku here, and today I thought I would do I guess you would call it a podcast type of thing. Um, it's been, I think, over a month since I last uploaded something, so I feel kind of bad about that. Um, but if you watched my last video, I explained that with my living situation, the one guy who lives across the hall from me is always on Skype talking to someone, and the other guy I live with is like playing music pretty regularly, so it doesn't really lead to you know decent audio quality. Um, so I figured, hey, you know what? I'll just record this early in the morning. It's currently not even 7 o'clock yet. Um, and if I just do it in my car, then the noise I'm making hopefully shouldn't wake them up because I'm in our garage in our car. So hopefully no one gets mad at me. Um, but I've uh, I've been doing pretty well. I've been getting caught up on all of the anime that I've purchased, but haven't had the chance to watch yet because I do work a lot. Um, I'm there at least 5 days a week. Sometimes I go in on Saturdays for a few hours. Um, and Monday through Thursday, I'm there for 9.5 hours out of the day. Um, Luckily, it's close by, so there's not like a super long commute that I have to commit to every day. But after working that long, you come home, you eat, you shower, whatever, and before you know it, it's like 6 o'clock, and you're like, oh shit, because I go to work at like 5:30 in the morning, so I try to be in bed by like, or be asleep rather, by like 10 o'clock every night. Um, so like if my roommates want to do something, it's like if they want to watch a movie, that pretty much like is the rest of my night at that point. Um, so this whole quarantine thing's actually been working out not so bad for me. I think the first thing I finished watching was Gatchaman. Um, I think prior to quarantine, I was about like 40-ish episodes in. Um, and then I took the time to watch the remaining 60 some odd episodes. Um, that show is pretty fun. It's your typical sort of like 70s Monster of the Week series. Um, but around the halfway point, it does get a bit more plot driven. Not a whole lot. Um, but there's a whole mystery behind what's going on with Berg Katse. There's some stuff that happens with Red Impulse. Um, Whereas pretty much every episode prior to that was linked by like the loosest possible thread, which is fine. That's just how shows were back then. Um, but yeah, I actually watched it with the English dub, which I actually liked the English dub a lot. It was very campy, and they used a lot of the 70s lingo to sort of replicate how a dub might have been in like the 70s for that show, which there was a dub back then for that show. That show had two adaptations before like the actual release of it being called Gatchaman, I think. Um, I think Battle of the Planets was the first series for it. I don't really know. I'm not super on the up and up with my Gatchaman history. Um, but I do know some amount of it. Um, but yeah, if anyone's looking for something like that, Monster of the Week, something where you can sort of like have it on But since, nothing too crazy goes on most of the time, you can sort of do something else. Like what I would do was I would have it on while grinding for shiny Pokemon in Pokemon Sword, which that's been going really well for me. Up to This is before any of the expansion sets or anything. I'm up to right around 310 shiny Pokemon um, out of the 400. So I'm making actually pretty good progress there. um, let's see what else. Oh, speaking of video games like Pokemon, I've taken this time to go back to Final Fantasy 12 and hopefully finally beat it. The last time I had played it before quarantine was like July of last year. Um, and I'm at like the point right before the end of the game where there's a bunch of like optional shit you can do. So I was doing that, and then I was just like, I got sort of burnt out on it. Especially because like the hardest optional stuff was still to come. So I have taken care of most of that harder optional stuff. Um, and now I'm feeling kind of burnt out on it again because um, I have like the last hardest boss, like optional boss to fight, and from what I've read, the fastest that anyone has beaten it is 50 minutes, and I don't feel like spending 50 minutes on a boss fight. I did the Adamantoise in Final Fantasy 15, and that was not fun. Um, I think there's a fine line between um, when a boss is difficult but fun, or when a boss is like difficult just for the sake of being difficult. Um, and I feel like there's a few bosses in specifically Final Fantasy 12 where they're just difficult for the sake of being difficult. Um, and I don't know. I also just went through like the worst part of any game I've ever played in that. The Great Crystal, which, if any of you have played, I'm sure you absolutely loathe the Great Crystal because it is just terrible in pretty much every way you could imagine. The enemies just inflict you with every status ailment. There's no map for you to follow. And then you have to do these weird timed things where you have to like basically keep a mental map. I guess you could draw it. But it is just the worst. I I'm so glad that I'm done with that. Um so yeah, I don't know. I might just beat the main game just to get that out of the way, say that I beat the game, and then save that last boss for some other day, maybe in another year. Um, but yeah, so I bought Final Fantasy VII Remake. I haven't gotten around to playing that yet because I'm determined to get through Final Fantasy 12 first. And then I have like the Kingdom Hearts shit that I have to play through still. I'm really backed up on my video games. At least I got the anime portion taken care of for now. Um, so yeah, anyway, after I watched Gatchaman, I watched Bobobo. And I watched it in Japanese because I was curious to see what it was like, and I think that was a big mistake. And I haven't seen Bobobo since I was a kid, so I don't really remember exactly what the show was all like what the style of humor was all about. Um, because it turns out the style of humor is a lot of wordplay, and Japanese wordplay does not always um, translate into English very well. In fact, it very rarely did in the case of that show. um, there was still points where they would draw the characters funny. They would do references to Dragon Ball and whatnot, and that stuff I found funny. But um, yeah, when a lot of the jokes rely on wordplay, it's kind of rough. When you're not you are very far from being fluent in the language. Um, but I still had fun with that. I think overall it was still decent, even in Japanese. I just think if I watch it again, it'll definitely be in English. What else? Oh, finally got around to watching Attack on Titan season 3, um, which I actually watched with a friend of mine. He hadn't seen season 2, so I rewatched that, which was good because I needed a refresher on that. Yeah, it's weird because I feel like with all these seasonal anime, I'll watch the first season and and I don't know why this is. I'm sure there's some sort of scientific explanation, but I'll always remember the first season way better than any of the ones that follow it. I don't know if anyone else out there is like that. Um, like I can tell you the first season of My Hero Academia and how it ends and everything. I know there's a tournament in the second season, but I cannot tell you how anything plays out beyond that. um, it's like that. I think the second season's where Stain shows up, but I'm pretty sure when they defeat Stain is not the end of the second season because I remember him getting taken care of pretty quickly, if I'm remembering right. And it was the same thing with Attack on Titan season 1. I remembered that really well. In season 2, I was like, man, what the hell happened in this season? Like, I remember them revealing who the Armored and Colossal Titans are. In some of the basic plots, but beyond that, I was like, I don't remember how this series or how this season ends. So, but yeah, season 2, pretty good. I still like season 2 quite a bit. Season 3 is when stuff really starts getting crazy. I heard from a friend of mine who is, I guess she pretty frequently goes on Tumblr, which I take anything from Tumblr with a kind of a grain of salt. Um, she was saying that she read on there that it was anti-Semitic, and I was like, well, I mean, I guess that's not out of the realm of possibility, but I'll see it for myself and judge that for myself. And no offense to anyone, but if you think Attack on Titan is anti-Semitic, you either don't know what that word means or don't know like the context in which they use that sort of Jewish symbolism in the series. Because it's really not problematic at all. um, yeah, season 3 of that was really good. Really excited to see season 4 and how everything ends because, I mean, I suppose something good could happen, but I feel like just a lot of characters are gonna end up dying. Um, so it's very strange to me that Attack on Titan is labeled as a shonen because it really does not feel like a shonen at all. It feels like it's definitely aimed towards a more adult audience, but um, yeah, I managed to get published in Shonen magazine, so I guess that's what it is. What else have I watched? Oh, Rose of Versailles, which that show was actually really good. If anyone wants to watch some late 70s shoujo anime, um, that is definitely the one to watch. Doesn't really even. I mean, it obviously has the shoujo elements there, but um, I feel like it sort of transcends what most people would think of a shoujo series. Um, 'Cause I feel like the sort of stereotypical image people get is super kawaii, um, sparkle and glitter shit everywhere, um, super over dramatic love story, which I really is not the case with Rose of Versailles, um, which if you don't know about it, it takes place during the French Revolution, and it follows basically well, the character's name is Oscar, but she's a woman. Um, she's basically like Marie Antoinette's best friend, so it's very interesting to see because I mean, if you know about the French Revolution, you know what happens to Marie Antoinette. So it's just based off of that alone. It was I was invested to see how everything plays out. Um, which I don't want to spoil anything for that one. So if anyone wants to check that show out, definitely do that. Show's really good. Um, I'd actually had started watching that like 2 years ago. This is a lot like the Final Fantasy 12 thing, where I'd been watching it with my one roommate, and I don't know what happened. We got I think like 18 episodes in, which is about halfway through the series. And he didn't lose interest in it. Like when I told him I was rewatching it, he was like, "Oh, that's awesome." Um, but yeah, I don't know exactly what happened. For whatever reason, we stopped watching it. I was like, I'll just put this on hold till we pick it back up. And I figured 2 years was long enough. I was like, all right, we're probably not going to pick this back up. Um, especially since he's been spending way more time, talking to his friends on the computer as of late. Which, hey, if that's what he wants to do, good for him. Um, but I want to finish watching an anime that I started 2 years ago. So it was nice to finally get that taken care of. Also, I've been watching. I just started Magi, which I'm probably gonna watch a bunch more of today. Um, but yeah, I'd watched one episode yesterday, and then I I'm all caught up on this now, so this is not gonna really be a factor anymore. But there's a Chris Chan documentary series that is very entertaining. It is both hilarious and tragic at the same time. Um, which if any of you don't know about Chris Chan, she is the creator of Sonichu, which is the electric hedgehog Pokemon. Um, just just insane amounts of cringe. Like Chris Chan's life has basically been dictated by the trolls since I guess she claims like 2007. Um, which I think their life is more normal now. Because she's kind of taken a step away from the internet. But man, it is insane. If you wanna check that out, I'd definitely recommend it. It goes through like every little aspect of Chris's life, so it's very informative. I know I've watched more. I have to have watched more. Oh, Tokyo Ghoul Re. Yeah, so let's. All right, Tokyo Ghoul is like the one of the worst handled anime adaptations I've ever seen, and I think anyone that's watched that series is probably in agreement with me on that. Um, First season is really good. They changed some stuff, but it's nothing that's like really affects the plot all that much. Um, then season two comes around, and it follows similar plot beats, but like the way they get to that stuff is like I'm comparing it to the manga here. It follows similar plot beats to the manga, but the way they get from point A to point B is just very different, and then the way it ends is not the same as the manga. Um, so then Tokyo Ghoul Re happens, and they follow the manga storyline, like what happens at the end of the Tokyo Ghoul manga, prior to Tokyo Ghoul Re. So And I'd heard, people complaining about how it doesn't follow like the Route A storyline or whatever, because that's what would have made more sense. Because these are all anime adaptations here. Um, and I heard that it was like super fast paced, and I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. Um, the first half of Tokyo Ghoul Re, I really didn't have much of an issue with at all. I was watching it, and I was like, this doesn't seem that fast paced. Like I'm able to keep up with everything that's going on. Um, and I looked into it, and the first 12 episodes adapted the first like 60-ish chapters of the manga. So that's like 5 chapters per episode, which is, it's fine. Um, anything beyond that can be kind of rough to follow, I think. The problem is that the Tokyo Ghoul Re manga is like 180 chapters, and this anime tries to adapt the whole thing. So that means that this anime should have been like probably 36 to 39 episodes, but it's only 24. So the second half is trying to cram 120 chapters worth of content into 12 episodes, which is insane. Like, there's no way that you can accurately adapt a manga doing 10 chapters an episode. I can't fathom why they would do that. Other than they just didn't want to devote the time and money to a third core. And I gotta say, I was very confused about what was happening during that second half of Tokyo Ghoul Re. I had a rough time keeping track of where everyone's alliances were and whatnot. It was rough, and I didn't really feel anything by the end of it, which that's bad, right? For you to not feel a specific way about anything at the end of a sort of long journey like that, right? Like the whole thing, the whole Tokyo Ghoul anime was just under 50 episodes total. So you'd think after being with these characters for that long, you'd, feel something by the end of the series, but no. Yeah, I actually just finished watching the Hobbit trilogy, and I felt more at the end of the third movie than I did at the end of Tokyo Ghoul. And those Hobbit movies were not very well done. um, Especially compared to the Lord of the Rings movies. But I digress. Yeah, Tokyo Ghoul. I'd love to see it get another adaptation at some point. I'm doubtful that it's gonna happen. Um, yeah, I don't think it's like as big of a deal as Full Metal Alchemist, but we'll see. You never know. Um, I didn't think Fruits Basket would get any other anime adaptations, but it's apparently that's happening. So, um, you could always be surprised. Other than that, I think those are basically all the series that I've watched. I have watched a few like anime movies. I watched Blame, which I didn't think was all that interesting. Visually, it was very cool, but beyond that, everything else is pretty weak. I also watched Mind Game, which that movie's crazy. Anything by Masaki Yuasa is pretty good. Um, those of you who don't know who that is, he's the guy that directed Devilman Crybaby, which I feel like most people in the anime watching community are at least aware of that show. Um, that show's crazy. I love that show. I'm probably actually gonna rewatch that very soon now that I'm pretty much all caught up with my anime stuff. I think I know I've watched more movies, but for the life of me cannot remember them. I have a couple movies by and I feel bad not remembering the director's name, but the guy that did Your Name, I have a couple movies of his that I have bought after seeing Your Name, but I haven't watched. So I'll probably get around to those pretty soon. Um, but yeah, I also rewatched the first season of Metabots, which was pretty fun. Um, I always think it's really interesting to see how, like, because growing up, I grew up with 4 Kids Pokemon and 4 Kids One Piece and all sorts of 4 Kids stuff, which they did their damnedest to make sure they got rid of any references to Japanese culture or anything in all those adaptations. So it's always funny to me when I watch something like Metabots or Digimon, where they actually try to leave a decent amount of that stuff intact. I just, I don't know why 4 Kids did that. Um, but luckily they're pretty much gone now. I think they're still, I think they're still kind of around, but I don't really know what they're doing at this point. They, from what I've heard, I haven't seen the Japanese version of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, but apparently they really messed that show up. So, um, my one friend was talking about checking out the Japanese version of GX. I was like, oh, that's might check that out at some point. That could be fun. I really wish we would get a release of Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 at some point, because I mean, that shit's just cool. Like, before the card game, really, everything was just really dark. People were dying, which, I mean, people died in the Japanese version of the what we know as the first season of Yu-Gi-Oh! But it wasn't quite as gruesome, I don't think, as season 0. Um, yeah, somebody get on that. um, oh yeah, I also watched. How could I forget about this? The first Blu-ray set for Galaxy Express 39. It's another show from the 70s, and like Gatchaman, it's very episodic. So I could usually only watch like maybe 5 or 6 episodes in a shot before I'd get kind of bored and have to switch over to something else. But um, yeah, I like it. I like it quite a bit actually. Um, I like the main character a whole lot. He's crap. What's the main character's name? I remember Maytel is his guardian. Anyway, he's voiced by the same voice actor that still does Goku in Japanese. And I could tell right away. I was like, that's Masako Nozawa. Um, so that was really cool. I haven't seen her in pretty much anything aside from Dragon Ball. I think she does a voice of I can't remember the game. Is it Smite? It's like a Sun Wukong character in one of those MOBA type games that she does the voice for. Which, she just basically does her Goku voice for that because obvious reasons. um, Galaxy Express 39, I'm excited. I think the second set comes out in August, so I'm definitely gonna pick that up. I got into the Leiji verse, which, for anyone who might not be aware, Leiji Matsumoto, I think is his full name, um, did a whole bunch of manga during like the 70s and 80s, and they all like use a lot of the same characters, but they're not. It's not part of like a continued storyline. Like everything takes place within its own universe, but they share the same characters. Um, and even stuff like Captain Harlock, for instance. That's what the anime for that's what got me into the Leiji verse in the first place. There's several Captain Harlock anime, but none of them are really connected to each other, which is just interesting to me. It's something that you don't see a whole lot of creators do, where they'll create these characters and they'll continue to use these characters, but all of the stories that they're in are sort of not really connected to each other. Definitely want to check out some more of his stuff. Other than that, I haven't really. I think that's most of the anime that I've been watching. I've been watching, some live action stuff with my friends. I feel like you guys might be less interested in that stuff. I could be wrong. If anyone's still listening at this point, just let me know. I've just been kind of rambling for a while now. um, I don't know exactly how long, actually. I don't really have a clock down here. I could check my phone, but I'm using that to record, so I'd rather not be pressing buttons on that. Um, but yeah, just a quick update. If you people enjoy this, please let me know, because I could continue to do this at somewhat of a regular rate. Um, I don't know, maybe once every couple weeks or something. Because, I mean, I like talking to you guys, Like, I realize we're not talking to in person, but, I like reading the comments and sort of going back and forth with everyone. And I kind of miss doing that, which was the big reason why I wanted to do this. I do very much intend to do um, like anime reviews at some point. I just don't know sort of what format I want to do. And like I said, with the current recording situation, it's not ideal. So we'll see. Um, Hopefully, by the time this quarantine is over, I'll have figured that all out and can hopefully move on that pretty quickly. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for this. I think I've rambled on long enough. So, anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.